Hello and welcome to your Depression, War and Recovery Walk-in Talk-in mock. Today I'm going to be going through the specimen exam paper with you, explaining how to answer the questions, reminding you how to answer the questions. And once I'm finished, I'm going to upload the PowerPoint to the Teams, and what I want you to do is actually have a go at this exam paper. I'll direct you to places you can get information from. You should have your books at home with you. And we'll go from there. There's also a booklet that I've uploaded to Teams before you went off, so there's lots of places you can get your information. So I'm going to go through the exam and then I'm going to expect you at the end of the lesson to actually have a go at this mock yourself. So, question 1. Remember, as with all the units in history, there are 5 questions in an exam paper. There's 7 key questions to study, which means that you will only ever get asked about 5 key questions. There'll always be 2 that they don't ask you about, but we don't know which 2 that'll be. Each question will cover a key question. Okay, so you won't get question 1 and question 2 being about life in the depression. It'll only be 1 question. It'll never come up twice. So this question is about women in the Second World War. Study the sources below and answer the question which follows. So the one thing I want you to make sure you remember about this question is you do not need your own knowledge. There is no need for your own knowledge. In fact, if you do put any of your own knowledge in, it won't be marked. It'll be disregarded. It will not get you any extra marks. So do not waste your time. I cannot emphasize that enough. You need 2 points from source A, you need 2 points from source B, and you need to move on. It is 4 questions. You need to just pick up the 4 questions and move on to the next one. Okay? So 2 from source A, 2 from source B, move it along. Question 2. This should be pretty easy for you now because we've been doing this a lot in class recently. Study the source below and then answer the question which follows. To which extent does this source accurately explain the experience of evacuees who were sent to Wales during the Second World War? You're assessing its accuracy. You're assessing essentially its reliability in the same way that we've been doing in your controlled assessments. Think date, author, tone, and audience. And I'm not going to read through this because it would take a while. You can have a read through that yourself. You can pause it. But the gist of it is that this is a lady who was evacuated. She was sent to Wales and she had quite a nice time. She had a nice family. She eats her favourite tinned fruit and she has a nice family to look after. So she has quite a welcoming time. And it's the memories of a wartime evacuee interviewed for a TV show on evacuation in September 2000. Now, already we know that this is not totally accurate because from studying evacuees, we know that not all evacuees had this experience. A lot of them weren't wanted. A lot of them went to quite strict families who weren't very nice to them. So you know straight away, and you can fill that with your own knowledge. It's not totally accurate because even though, yes, some people did have experiences like this, and you can pad it out with your own knowledge, you say some people didn't have experiences like that and explain that a little bit then again, okay? Once you've done that, you then need to assess the data, date, author, tone, and audience, okay? Look at when it was written. Think about the fact that it's from September 2000. She's remembering things. So there is benefit of hindsight. They've had time to reflect, but also there is room for error sometimes when you're remembering things, okay? And it's a very long time after. Think about the fact that it's for a TV program. Think about the fact that it is specific to evacuation, which is important. And think about who would have been behind creating this TV program. Okay, but date, author, tone, audience, and this makes it reliable because, or this limits the reliability, this limits the accuracy because, and then make a judgment. Okay. So, question 3. Why was the British government's use of propaganda significant during the Second World War? My first piece of advice with this one is if it's asking why something was significant, don't say that it wasn't significant. I have that quite a lot. If it's saying why is it significant, take for granted that it is significant, okay? To what extent was it significant? That's a different question. This one though is why was it significant? So that take for granted that it was, okay? Now, 3 reasons that it was significant, padded out and explained for this would suffice. Okay, so 3 reasons why propaganda was significant and what it did, padded out with your own knowledge, and that will get you the good marks. So you're thinking, keep referring back to the question, give context, think about the bigger picture, what else is going on. Don't just describe the issue, explain why it was significant. If you keep saying things like it was significant because, this was significant because, you won't go far wrong. It's not a two-sided judgment, it is an explanation. Why was something significant? 3 padded out points with your own knowledge should get you some good marks there. Okay? Explain the connections between any 3 of the following: the Beveridge Report, Labour victory, NHS, and nationalisation of key industries. You pick 3 of them. And you identify and fully explain the connections between your 3 chosen features. As many connections as you can. I would go down the route of, right, if I was going to do this, I'd do Beveridge Report, Labour victory, and NHS. I'd start with the Beveridge Report and I'd say it's connected to the Labour victory because blah, blah, blah. It's also connected to the Labour victory, to the NHS because blah, blah, blah. Then I'd go, the Labour victory could also be connected to the Beveridge Report because of blah, blah, blah. It could also be connected, and I'd do it that way. Okay, so you'll have 3 paragraphs padded out with your own knowledge there. It is literally just explaining the connections. One thing that you will not get marks for is explaining what they are. Right? If you just explain what the Beveridge Report was, and a report and say that it was a report into the state of well-being in Britain in the late 1930s and early 1940s, you will get 0 marks. You don't need to explain what they are. That's just wasting time. You literally jump straight in with the connections. Okay? Don't go into detail about how the NHS was set up and it was passed in 1945 and come into being in 1948. That will not get you any marks at this point. You just need to explain the connections. Okay. And question 5, the big one, 19 marker. This is about the impact of the Depression on ordinary people in Britain. Read the extract below and then answer the question which follows. Without going into too much detail, this is basically saying that even though it was a period of depression, there were lots of holidays and there were lots of TVs and radios and all that kind of thing as well, and that life wasn't too, holiday camps flourished, life wasn't too bad for everybody, okay? And that's Josh Broomman, a historian writing in a GCSE school history textbook, People and Change, published in 1994. So, how far do you agree with this interpretation of the impact of the Depression on ordinary people in Britain? This is, on the one hand, on the other hand, and analysing the attribute as well. Okay, so with this one, what we need to do is go, yes, on the one hand, life in the Depression wasn't so bad. Use this information, put your own information in, and explain why it could be correct. Okay, then what I would expect you to do is give reasons why you would disagree, and this is where you'd bring your own knowledge in. Okay, tell me about the Depression in the 1930s. You've got things about what making ends meet and self-help, the means test, the Treforest industrial estate, things like the hunger marches, all that kind of thing. You'd bring in and say, actually though, it wasn't good for everybody because obviously this happened as well. Right? Then what you need to do is you need to do data. Now, the way I would do it with this one is reasons why you would agree with it using data. Okay, so why is it a reliable piece of evidence? You'd say, well, he's an historian, he's writing a GCSE, he's an historian, he's had time to research. Josh Broomman writes a lot of GCSE school history books, so he's obviously well researched. You want to say something about date, author, tone, and audience. Everything there that says why you think you could agree with it, why it is reliable. Then you want to say, on the other hand, there are limitations to this, and you can say things about it being it's a GCSE history textbook, meaning that it's not as specific as it would be if it was written for a university. That can do data again, and the reasons that it's got a limited reliability. Okay, so. And this is there to help you, and there's some sentence starters there, and you can explain. It's really important that you do data and you look at the reliability. If you don't do that, you're going to lose a lot of marks. Okay? So, at the end as well, reach a judgment. Do you agree with the interpretation? Focus it directly on the question. So, why do you agree with the interpretation? Own knowledge. Why do you disagree with the interpretation? Own knowledge. Why do you agree with the interpretation looking at data? And why do you disagree with it looking at data? And then judgment at the end. And that's how I would do it. There's some sentence starters there to help you as well. So that's going through the exam. What I want you to do now is using your books, using the booklet that I've put up for you on Teams, using this link to BBC Bitesize, and there's a WJC blended learning website as well. I want you to have a go at that mock. Now, it's up to you. You can type it up and send it in to me. You can write it up and bring it in next week. It's totally up to you. But then for the next part of the lesson for today, I want you to have a go at those questions. I've uploaded the PowerPoint to go along with it as well, so you've got the questions, but that's going to be a task now for the next sort of hour or so, I'd say. And then we'll be moving on to the next lesson. So thank you very much. Speak to you next week.